welcome to Devos with Debbie. Today we're looking at Jeremiah 2 through 3 verse 5. And in these passages, it's important to note that this one is Jeremiah's first word of the Lord that he is to tell to others. So it has a lot of weight, and you can really see Jeremiah engaging with this material in a very emotional way. And two, God is using the metaphor, the ever intimate metaphor of God as Israel's husband. And it starts off right off the bat this way. And you can just feel God's heartbreak. You can feel this isn't just like a God in heaven with a white beard, the angry old white man, like, rah. No, this is a husband's heart for his bride. And he says this, verse 2, I remember the devotion of your youth, your love as a bride, how you followed me in the wilderness in a land not sown. Israel was holy to the Lord, the first fruits of his harvest. All who ate of it incurred guilt. Disaster came upon them, declares the Lord. He is thinking back and remembering Israel's devotion, love, and trust in the beginning. And I think I've talked about this before, and it's sort of a theme that has come up at various points in my life, but it's really hard to finish well. It's really hard to finish well. And as I learned more about my personality and how God made me, I have learned recently that I am a thrust. I am high energy in the beginning, all about like starting things, super pumped for getting things started, but I'm probably not the best person to follow through and see it all the way to the end. Though I think my perfectionism will make me press through to the end. It is not my favorite thing, and I have to pull up a lot of effort and energy versus the beginning. Getting something started is like brings me life. I think I've approached my relationship with God this way too, where I'll start off really strong in disciplines and studying new books of Bible, whatever it may be, but I fizzle. And I think Israel is the exact same here. They started off strong. They had a devotion, love as a young bride, and they had just this trust with God that they would even follow him into the wilderness. And yet, you know what's coming. When God's reflecting on their former, emphasis on former, trust, devotion, love, their love has grown cold. And how has that played out? We see he talks about how they turned to idols. And he said, you went after worthlessness and became worthless. And I don't think God's saying you have no value. He's saying you become what you worship. And as you worship me, you become radiant and beautiful. But you have chosen to worship the things that are worthless. And it's reflecting in your life. And that was verse 5 where he says that. And there's a key question that is repeated twice and inferred many other times that the Israelites have not been asking. God brings them to the promised land, and it says they did not say, where is the Lord? That's verse 6 and 8. It's repeated. They got through the wilderness to the promised land, and the first thing they do is turn to idolatry. And I imagine this just stabbed God in the heart, because he just set them free to serve him. And he did this radical redemption, this radical deliverance and even a long process for them to get to the promised land through 40 years of being in the wilderness. They just didn't get it. They didn't ask, where is the Lord? They said, what can satisfy my thirst? And again, we have this image, previously God said, they exchanged, or they became worthless by pursuing what is worthless. Here it says, but my people have changed their glory for that which does not profit. Verse 11. And again, it's that image of idolatry. We had access, we have, including myself here, access to the Lord's glory, and yet we exchange it for something that's worthless. When you put it that way, it doesn't make sense, but in our human mind, we rationalize and we look for the immediate gratification versus the long-term deep satisfaction. Speaking about myself and my own sinful inclinations. And verse 13 puts it really, really well. Oops, sorry. A little tired this morning. Verse 13. For my people have committed 2 evils. They have forsaken me, the fountain of living waters, and hewed out cisterns for themselves, broken cisterns that can hold no water. So what are their 2 sins? Their 2 evils. That appalls God. He says that before, be appalled, O heavens, at this, be shocked, be utterly desolate. These are the 2 evils. They had access to the living waters. And instead, not only did they say, I don't want the living waters, they said, we can do this on our own. And they made cisterns, but they're broken. Every time you fill water, it pours out. Fill water, has a crack, it's going to leak. And you just see the stark contrast. God gave us access to fountains of living water that will never run dry. And we choose to make our own cisterns, tons of effort, to haul ourselves over to whatever source of water we can find, fill it up as full as we can, and walk away. But little do we know it's leaking, and we're just going to have to go back there again. It just doesn't make sense, but it's what we do, isn't it? Oh, sorry. Today's scattered day. But verse 17, it says, have you not brought this upon yourself by forsaking the Lord your God when he led you in the way? And it's just a revelation. God's not this sadistic, again, white man, old in the heavens saying, smite them, I don't like them. He's saying, he's helping us see with our eyes a little clearer that, you know what? We had the choice, and we chose not God's way, which is just bringing God's wrath upon us. The fear of the Lord is not in them. Verse 19. I keep flipping between talking about them and us, and probably there's something to that I'm really identifying with this passage, and also identifying my generation with this passage, as well as acknowledging that it's rooted in history and that this is what Jeremiah is prophetically speaking about. And speaking to the nation of Israel. I imagine he probably went into the temple. God sent him into Jerusalem. So I'm imagining he's in the temple speaking this out to a crowd, as well as Baruch writing this down. But anyways, the fear of God is not in them. And it looks like they've tried to solve the problem themselves. They were thirsty. They decided, I don't want God, so I'm going to make my own sister. They solved the problem themselves. And they try again. In verse 22, it says, though you wash yourself with lye and use much soap, the stain of your guilt is still before me. And this is an interesting image, this attempt to wash off, this sin. And I was actually just reading in this book, Insanity of God, where this man had this dream where he started seeing, blood on his hands and spots, and no matter how much he washed, he couldn't get it off. And then it would grow and grow and grow until he just had blood dripping down his hands. Very gory, but what happened, what this guy experienced. And then during the day, he thought he was going crazy. He started seeing it. And he just tried all he could to wash it off, and he couldn't. It was just stuck there on his hands. And he's trying. And then he has this, I can't remember if it is a dream or a vision of God, says, like, I'm the one who can wash off this stain. And that's exactly what God is saying. He's saying, you keep trying to build cisterns and fill yourself up, but you're not going to be satisfied. You keep trying to take off your sin, but guess what? I can still see it. And I'm the only one who can take it off. And we see a little bit of honor-shame culture here coming out, where God's saying, like, you're going to experience shame of your sin. You think your sin is just going to remain hidden or be glossed over, and you cry out to me in your help, like, even though you turned your back on me before and you worshipped idols, you cry out to me in your moment of distress, and you don't think there's going to be this consequence for sin. But God is a just God, and there will be consequences. And we see this heartbreak yet again when it says in verse 32, yet my people have forgotten me, days without number. And this one just stood out to me. God isn't just hung up on the sins of his people. He's hung up on the fact that he delivered them and they forsook him. And not only did they forsake him, but they're not bringing to remembrance all the things he did. They just forgot him. They're like, not even a thought in their mind is going to the God that delivered them, that set them free. Whew. And he gives this quite intense image. He says, I'm going to read it because it's just very intense. It says, you have played whore with many lovers, and would you return to me? Declares the Lord. Lift up your eyes to the bare heights and see. Where have you not been ravished? It's just very intense language there. I'll be pretty vague here, but you can imagine what that is. He's basically, again, identifying with this husband-wife metaphor, and he has loved Israel, redeemed Israel, joined with Israel in the most intimate way. He wants to be with Israel. He loves Israel. And Israel has whored herself to many lovers, even to the point where he says, look around. Where have you not been ravished? Like, look all over. We see God's broken heart. We see him wanting our love, wanting to be remembered, wanting to be the fountain of living waters for us again. And I don't really have a way to wrap this up other than saying, what love is this, This is a true love story, I believe. Though it starts off quite tragic, it's a redeeming love story where, God brings us back. He buys us back, He redeems us. And He pours out this unconditional love, this amazing grace that we did not deserve. So let's live in that truth today. And remember the devotion of our youth. The love that we had at first, the first love, that it talks about in Revelation to letters of the church. Like, you've done all these great things, you've been perseverant, but you have forsaken your first love. Let's return to that childlike devotion, love, and trust in the Lord, and play with this metaphor in our head of God as our lover. Like, He wants to romance us. He wants to be remembered, to spend time with us, to know us, for us to know Him, to be in conversation with Him, to share with Him, and to seek Him first as our source of living water and as our cleansing. So, that's a lot to think about. Intense. Jeremiah, I already know this is going to be really intense to read through. That's it. Have a good day. Bye.